Hello and welcome to our Satsang. Today we're going to continue reading A Course in Miracles. Last time we left off on Chapter 1, just finished reading what I think are some of the most important and easy to understand principles of miracles when you're first starting the book. Now we're moving on to Part 2 of Chapter 1, Revelation, Time, and Miracles. I am going to read Part 2, 3, and 4 from Chapter 1 and give commentary and explanations as we go. Chapter 1, Part 2, Revelation, Time, and Miracles. Revelation induces complete but temporary suspension of doubt and fear. It reflects the original form of communication between God and His creations, involving the extremely personal sense of creation sometimes sought in physical relationships. So here we're seeing revelation for the first time in the book. Revelation is not entirely unlike the atonement or atonement, which we translate to enlightenment. Revelation doesn't necessarily mean the entire atonement has taken place, or aka that you have achieved full enlightenment or union with God, so to speak, but it might be a glimpse of atonement, or revelation could also be translated to the concept of a mystical or spiritual experience that is quite profound and results from a miracle. When it's saying that the revelation reflects the original form of communication between God and His creations, what Jesus is referring to is that form of unity in communication that is present when you have achieved atonement. So when you experience a revelation, you are connecting so intimately with God that there is no more separation. And that's why he says here that this is what we seek unconsciously in our, day-to-day lives when we go about having physical relationships with other people. But as he continues, physical closeness cannot achieve it. Miracles, however, are genuinely interpersonal and result in true closeness to others. Revelation unites you directly with God. See, it unites you with God. Miracles unite you directly with your brother. Neither emanates from consciousness, but both are experienced there. So both miracles and revelation are experienced within consciousness, though they don't come from consciousness. Consciousness is the state that induces action, though it does not inspire it. You are free to believe what you choose, and what you do attests to what you believe. Revelation is intensely personal and cannot be meaningfully translated. That is why any attempt to describe it in words is impossible. Revelation induces only experience. So what he's saying here is revelation is extremely subjective and personal. So when you try to explain to somebody else some sort of mystical or spiritual revelation or realization or experience you've had, of course, it's really going to fall short because it was completely subjective and really only you can understand how awe-inspiring the revelation was. He continues, miracles, on the other hand, induce action. They are more useful now because of their interpersonal nature. In this phase of learning, working miracles is important because freedom from fear cannot be thrust upon you. Revelation is literally unspeakable because it is an experience of unspeakable love. So what's interesting here is he's saying miracles are more important right now because of the fact that we live in illusion and we are not part of the atonement yet. We are seeking to join in the atonement, to experience revelation as a result of miracles, and eventually join in the atonement. But right now, because we can't be forced into atonement, we can't be forced into having a revelation or an experience of oneness with all of creation and God, we have to rely on like incremental experiences that are brought upon by miracles so that we don't end up in a state of absolute fear. Because if you're living in an illusion where you believe everything outside of you is real, that you are separate from other people and you are separate from, the capital S self, the God, the source, the universe, however you want to call it, then if you are shown the opposite, that you're actually believing in illusion and that there is no separation, that all things are one, then you're going to be absolutely terrified of that complete shift in perception. And that's why the correction of perception has to come slowly over time. And miracles shorten the need for time, because each time you experience a miracle, you get closer to revelation. And the more revelation you have, the closer you get to the full atonement, aka enlightenment. Awe should be reserved for revelation, to which it is perfectly and correctly applicable. It is not appropriate for miracles because a state of awe is worshipful, implying that one of a lesser order stands before his creator. You are a perfect creation, and should experience awe only in the presence of the creator of perfection. The miracle is therefore a sign of love among equals. Equals should not be in awe of one another, because awe implies inequality. It is therefore an inappropriate reaction to me. An elder brother is entitled to respect for his greater experience and obedience for his greater wisdom. He is also entitled to love because he is a brother, and to devotion if he is devoted. It is only my devotion that entitles me to yours. There is nothing about me that you cannot attain. I have nothing that does not come from God. The difference between us now is that I have nothing else. This leaves me in a state which is only potential in you. I want to point out here that he's trying to tell us that even though we worship and are in awe of Jesus Christ, he's trying to say not to, because we are actually equals within the creation. Just because he's achieved atonement and is closer to God than we are, does not mean that we do not have the potential to be the exact same thing as him and to be as close with God as he is. So he's saying the difference between us is that he is nothing other than closeness with God. He is nothing other than the realization of the atonement and the realization of non-duality or the oneness of all things. We are different from him because we have other things within our perception than simply oneness. No man cometh unto the Father but by me does not mean that I am in any way separate or different from you except in time, and time does not really exist. The statement is more meaningful in terms of a vertical rather than a horizontal axis. You stand below me, and I stand below God. In the process of rising up, I am higher because without me the distance between God and man would be too great for you to encompass. I bridge the distance as an elder brother to you on the one hand, and a son of God on the other. My devotion to my brothers has placed me in charge of the sonship, which I render complete because I share it. This may appear to contradict the statement, I and my Father are one, but there are two parts to the statement in recognition that the Father is greater. Revelations are indirectly inspired by me because I am close to the Holy Spirit and alert to the revelation readiness of my brothers. I can thus bring down to them more than they can draw down to themselves. The Holy Spirit mediates higher to lower communication, keeping the direct channel from God to you open for revelation. Revelation is not reciprocal. It proceeds from God to you, but not from you to God. So something I want to point out here is that he's kind of defining an aspect of the Holy Spirit in the context of this book. The Holy Spirit is the channel through which God communicates with you so that you may have a revelation experience or to eventually achieve the atonement. So you can think of the Holy Spirit as sort of a thread that connects you to your Creator. And through this thread, you can glimpse your true connection and your true essence, your true being as one with God and all of creation. The miracle minimizes the need for time. In a horizontal plane, the recognition of the equality of the members of the sonship appears to involve almost endless time. However, the miracle entails a sudden shift from horizontal to vertical perception. This introduces an interval from which the giver and receiver both emerge further along in time than they would otherwise have been. The miracle thus has a unique property of abolishing time to the extent that it renders the interval of time it spans unnecessary. There is no relationship between the time a miracle takes and the time it covers. The miracle substitutes for learning that might have taken thousands of years. It does so by the underlying recognition of perfect equality of giver and receiver on which the miracle rests. The miracle shortens time by collapsing it, thus eliminating certain intervals within it. It does this, however, within the larger temporal sequence. I think this last portion of this part of the chapter 1 is really, really good. It's crucial to point out that he's saying the miracle substitutes for learning that might have taken thousands of years. Thousands. Do you live for thousands of years in one lifetime? No. I think this is a strong case in A Course in Miracles for reincarnation, for the soul's journey over and over into the human realm in order to learn lessons. And he's explaining that the need for time is shortened as you become more aware of the atonement, as you become closer and closer to enlightenment. Through the process of revelation, there is less need for time. So when you have a miracle, especially a substantial miracle, it could be a split second, and it could collapse hundreds of years, many lifetimes. And that's why he says there's no relationship between how long a miracle is, how long it lasts, and how much time it collapses. So you have to think about it on a vertical axis where you're moving upwards towards the atonement, towards God. And time you can think of as akin to experience or distance. And the more miracles that you experience, the shorter and shorter the distance becomes. It's almost like you're skipping ahead, closer and closer to God. Part 3. Atonement and Miracles. I am in charge of the process of atonement which I undertook to begin. When you offer a miracle to any of my brothers, you do it to yourself and me. The reason you come before me is that I do not need miracles for my own atonement, but I stand at the end in case you fail temporarily. My part in the atonement is the canceling out of all errors that you could not otherwise correct. When you have been restored to the recognition of your original state, you naturally become part of the atonement yourself. As you will share my unwillingness to accept error in yourself and others, you must join the great crusade to correct it. I want to pause there and say that he doesn't need miracles because he's already aware. He's already fully realized. You're the one who needs miracles, but Jesus waits just at the end before the full atonement happens to you, just in case you have a few leftover errors in your perception of reality that don't necessarily need that much more time to correct. So he can just reach down across that last span of distance between you and God and pull you up into the atonement. And then once you're in the atonement, you've become fully enlightened. You're completely aware of non-duality. You're sitting there with Jesus, with God, in the awareness of all that is. And then, as he says, because you're now a part of the atonement, which is just a byproduct of having achieved it, you share the unwillingness to accept error in yourself and others. So you're no longer able to accept any illusion, no matter what it is, from anyone, by anyone, even yourself. And that's not a judgmental thing. It's more of, why does Jesus help us, right? Why does Jesus want to help us realize our truth and to dispel our illusions? Because he doesn't like to see that the sonship, that the creation, is in a state of separation. The sonship is one. The creation is one within God. And we are perfect. We just don't realize it. We don't recognize it. We don't remember it. We're asleep. We're dreaming. So he tries to help us. And when you become enlightened, when you have achieved atonement, you will also do the same. Listen to my voice, learn to undo error and act to correct it. The power to work miracles belongs to you. I will provide the opportunities to do them, but you must be ready and willing. Doing them will bring conviction in the ability, because conviction comes through accomplishment. The ability is the potential, the achievement is the expression. and the atonement, which is the natural profession of the children of God, is the purpose. Heaven and earth shall pass away means that they will not continue to exist as separate states. That's a really good sentence. Heaven and earth shall pass away means that they will not continue to exist as separate states. So heaven and earth where we are, heaven where God is, will cease to be separate. They will become one. There will be no more conceptual differences between there and here. There will be no experiential difference between there and here, because we will be within the mind of God as self-realized beings, as God, as self-realized people who are aware of the oneness. So, if all is one, earth and heaven are one. All things are one. My word, which is the resurrection and the life, shall not pass away, because life is eternal. You are the work of God, and his work is wholly lovable and wholly loving. This is how a man must think of himself in his heart, because this is what he is. The forgiven are the means of the atonement. Being filled with spirit, they forgive in return. Those who are released must join in releasing their brothers, for this is the plan of the atonement. Miracles are the way in which minds that serve the Holy Spirit unite with me for the salvation or release of all of God's creations. I am the only one who can perform miracles indiscriminately, because I am the atonement. You have a role in the atonement, which I will dictate to you. Ask me which miracles you should perform. This spares you needless effort, because you will be acting under direct communication. The impersonal nature of the miracle is an essential ingredient, because it enables me to direct its application, and under my guidance, miracles lead to the highly personal experience of revelation. A guide does not control, but he does direct, leaving it up to you to follow. Lead us not into temptation means recognize your errors and choose to abandon them by following my guidance. Error cannot really threaten truth, which can always withstand it. Only the error is actually vulnerable. You are free to establish your kingdom where you see fit, but the right choice is inevitable, if you remember this. Spirit is in a state of grace forever. Your reality is only spirit. Therefore, you are in a state of grace forever. So we can define grace as a heavenly state in which everything is freely given, and there are no difficulties, struggles, or burdens. It's also the act of God reaching down and giving us a revelation of his presence, either in the form of temporary experience or divine union. So when he says spirit is in a state of grace forever, spirit, your spirit, the spirit of all things, is perpetually in union with God, divine union with God. And your reality, everything about your reality, is only spirit. Therefore, you are in a state of grace forever. So what he's saying here is you are always, forever, never wasn't in union with God. If your reality is in union with God and you are in union with God, then all things are in union with God. All things are one within God. So I'm going to repeat that. Spirit is in a state of grace forever. Your reality is only spirit. Therefore, you are in a state of grace forever. Atonement undoes all errors in this respect, and thus uproots the source of fear. Whenever you experience God's reassurances as threat, it is always because you are defending misplaced or misdirected loyalty. When you project this to others, you imprison them, but only to the extent to which you reinforce errors they have already made. This makes them vulnerable to the distortions of others, since their own perception of themselves is distorted. The miracle worker can only bless them, and this undoes their distortions and frees them from prison. You respond to what you perceive, and as you perceive, so shall you behave. The golden rule asks you to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This means that the perception of both must be accurate. The golden rule is the rule for appropriate behavior. You cannot behave appropriately unless you perceive correctly. Since you and your neighbor are equal members of one family, as you perceive both, so you will do to both. You should look out from the perception of your own holiness to the holiness of others. I love that. Look out from the perception of your own holiness to the holiness of others. Look out from the place of the God within, of the Christ within, and see the Christ of others, the God within others. Everybody is holy. Everybody is perfect. Everybody is part of the creation of God. We are all dreaming within the mind of God about separation, and we are truly one. We must always remember this. We must always remind ourselves to look onto others as if they are us, as if they are just as holy as us, just as perfect, just as pure. They are also sons of God. They are part of the sonship. We are all brothers and sisters. We are all one, and we should act like it. Miracles arise from a mind that is ready for them. By being united, this mind goes out to everyone, even without the awareness of the miracle worker himself. The impersonal nature of miracles is because the atonement itself is one, uniting all creations with their creator. As an expression of what you truly are, the miracle places the mind in a state of grace. The mind then naturally welcomes the host within and the stranger without. When you bring in the stranger, he becomes your brother. That the miracle may have effects on your brothers that you may not recognize is not your concern. The miracle will always bless you. Miracles you are not asked to perform have not lost their value. They are still expressions of your own state of grace. But the action aspect of the miracle should be controlled by me because of my complete awareness of the whole plan. The impersonal nature of miracle-mindedness ensures your grace, but only I am in a position to know where they can be bestowed. So because Jesus is outside of our limited perception of separation, he can see the whole creation. He can see all of the sonship, and he's already a part of the atonement. He's already achieved atonement, so he can look down upon us and know exactly where miracles are needed, how they're needed, who they're needed for, and by whom. And through this process, we become closer and closer to him and closer to the atonement ourselves. Miracles are selective only in the sense that they are directed towards those who can use them for themselves. Since this makes it inevitable that they will extend them to others, a strong chain of atonement is welded. However, this selectivity takes no account of the magnitude of the miracle itself, because the concept of size exists on a plane that is itself unreal. Since the miracle aims at restoring the awareness of reality, it would not be useful if it were bound by the laws that govern the error it aims to correct. So the error is our perception. The plane that we perceive is not even real, it's an illusion. So of course miracles aren't bound by the laws that we want to give miracles based on our faulty perception. That doesn't make any sense. Part 4. The escape from darkness. The escape from darkness involves 2 stages. First, the recognition that darkness cannot hide. This step usually entails fear. Second, the recognition that there is nothing you want to hide, even if you could. This step brings escape from fear. When you have become willing to hide nothing, you will not only be willing to enter into communion, but will also understand peace and joy. This is important. The escape from darkness involves first recognizing that darkness cannot hide. So anything that you think is dark about you, any darkness within you, within your perception, within your personality, whatever you think, feel, your secret thoughts of darkness, of evil, of sin, whatever you want to call it, they can't hide. There is no hiding place. Within the mind of God, everything is known. Second, after that first stage of realizing that truth, you'll come to the recognition that there is nothing that you'll want to hide, even if you could hide it. And then that step brings escape from fear. So first you're afraid because you can't hide anything, even though you want to hide it. And then you realize, well, you know what? I don't want to hide anything. And you completely surrender. And then you're willing to hide nothing so that you become willing to enter into communion. And then you experience peace and joy. Holiness can never be really hidden. in darkness, but you can deceive yourself about it. This deception makes you fearful because you realize in your heart it is a deception, and you exert enormous efforts to establish its reality. The miracle sets reality where it belongs. Reality belongs only to spirit, and the miracle acknowledges only truth. It thus dispels illusions about yourself and puts you in communion with yourself and God. The miracle joins in the atonement by placing the mind in the service of the Holy Spirit. This establishes the proper function of the mind and corrects its errors, which are merely lacks of love. The mind's errors are only lacks of love. Your mind can be possessed by illusions, but spirit is eternally free. If a mind perceives without love, it perceives an empty shell and is unaware of the spirit within. But the atonement restores spirit to its proper place. The mind that serves spirit is invulnerable. Darkness is lack of light, as sin is lack of love. It has no unique properties of its own. It is an example of the scarcity belief from which only error can proceed. Truth is always abundant. Those who perceive and acknowledge that they have everything have no needs of any kind. The purpose of the atonement is to restore everything to you, or rather to restore it to your awareness. You were given everything when you were created, just as everyone was. Everyone was given everything when they were created, but we believe in scarcity. We believe in separation. The emptiness engendered by fear must be replaced by forgiveness. That is what the Bible means by "there is no death," and why I could demonstrate that death does not exist. I came to fulfill the law by reinterpreting it. The law itself, if properly understood, offers only protection. It is those who have not yet changed their minds who brought the, quote, hellfire concept into it. I assure you that I will witness for anyone who lets me, and to whatever extent he permits it. Your witnessing demonstrates your belief and thus strengthens it. Those who witness for me are expressing through their miracles that they have abandoned the belief in deprivation in favor of the abundance they have learned belongs to them. Okay, that's the end of part 4, chapter 1. I'm going to stop there because this has gotten quite long. One of the things I want to point out just before I go about the last portion, the last part of this chapter, is when he's describing how we brought the quote-unquote hellfire into the concept of the law, or like how, heaven and earth and the universe works. There is no hellfire, there is no hell. There is only the forms and the formless. If you believe in forms, then you believe in hell. You will create your own hell through your belief in hell. But Jesus is always there. He's always waiting at the end of the process to pull you into the atonement, and you can be one with God, just as He is, just as all of us are meant to be. So that's what he means by if you reinterpret the law the way it's meant to be understood, it only offers protection. There is no, eternal damnation. There is only a time interval between where you are right now and where you want to be and where you should be, which is enlightened, which is one with God, having experienced the atonement. So I hope that you guys liked this reading. I hope it wasn't too much. I hope that my interpretations and explanations has helped. Please let me know in the comments, and I will continue reading if you liked it. Please subscribe, hit the like button, comment, let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you for listening.